Welcome once again, everybody, to Unsolicited Conjecture. I am Josh, and over there, see him? Do you see him looking at me right now? That's Jeremy.
Hello.
Now, you may be wondering, there's no... Yeah, you sound dumb when you wonder. You might be wondering, where's the video? Well, it's not there.
That's accurate. We're not doing video because we obviously couldn't keep up with that. So we're going to go strictly audio for a little bit until we can do more video later.
So starting today, the Unsolicited Conjecture Movie Club.
Yeah. We're also changing things up. We tried to do that whole general news thing, but it's just overbearing. There's so many people out there doing that. So
there's
we're going to
enough
review
people
movies.
doing the news well that there's no reason for us to do it.
Yeah, they don't need someone to do the news worse than they were doing it.
Yeah, especially when we're getting our news from people who are doing the news better.
Yeah.
So if you want the news, if you want to keep current,
watch the news.
Check out Screen Crush and Heavy Spoilers and Mr. Sunday Movies. And just watch those guys. And then come back to us for deep philosophical analysis.
Yeah. We're going to start diving deep into movies and one movie in particular per episode. And we think that'll be a much more enjoyable experience, not only for you to listen to, but for us to create, because it's kind of what we wanted to do originally anyway.
And it's an even better idea than my first idea, which was to dive into the same movie every week.
Yeah. He wanted to talk about Ghostbusters every week.
Keep doing it.
But never a bunch of Ghostbusters, just the first one.
Just the first one.
That's all he cared about.
Forever and ever, amen. So today...
What are we talking about today?
The first entry, the first case on the docket.
And this one's a straight banger, folks.
Yes. We decided that if we're going to start reviewing movies, we should probably start at the bottom and work our way up. So we dug... I'm not saying that there's nothing worse than this movie that's been committed to film. There have been several assassinations, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that have been put on, some type of recording device.
I've seen Faces of Death, and it's pretty equal.
But this is a bad movie. Today, what we're going to be talking about is 2005's Uwe Boll's Alone in the Dark.
Yes.
Uwe Boll, whatever it is.
Uwe?
I think
is it UWE? Is that how you?
I think the double V's. I think it's Uwe, but there's no way to know. Science has no way of knowing.
Uwe, if you're listening, let us know how to pronounce your name. We're sorry if we got it wrong. We're trying.
We're not that sorry. We saw your movie. We're not that sorry.
And we all, especially the first 5 minutes of this movie, was like the worst scripted.
It's such a chore.
But before we get into that, continue. Stats.
So, Alone in the Dark, 2005, with an IMDB rating of 2.4 out of 10, a Rotten Tomatoes score, the lauded and elusive 1%. 1% on Rotten Tomatoes, 11% on Fandango, because, you know what kind of people write reviews on there. With a budget of $20 million.
Woo!
Brought to you by Lionsgate, with a box office haul of a whole $12.7 million. So significantly less. Yeah, Going by the general rule that for marketing, you double your budget.
Yeah, they halved it, not even.
They got they quartered it. Yeah,
they did real good, quality work.
So this is an adaptation of the 2001 game Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare. Sans Freddy Krueger. It's a new nightmare.
I didn't even know that.
The original Alone in the Dark games were from the 90s. Like, the first Alone in the Dark came out in, I think, 92 or 94. It was the same year as Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, like the old school LucasArts point-and-click adventure games.
It was 94, because that's what I thought this movie came out, but you were quick to correct me.
Yeah. Well, Tara Reid hadn't grown into the actress she was yet in 92.
She was probably better back then.
So, this is a movie based on a sequel of a game, too, because the original games were, like, 18th, 19th century or so.
That's how you know it's a good idea. It's a real good idea. You know, what's funny? You were talking about the ratings on Amazon, because I watched this on Amazon Prime with commercials, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
It had a 4.5-star rating.
Yeah.
4.5 out of 5. Out of 5. Not out of 10 or 20 or 50. Out of 5. 4.5 stars. This movie was rated on Amazon.
I don't understand how that's possible.
I don't either.
I watched it on DVD. I have a DVD.
I had the DVD. I couldn't find it. Like, we'll go into it later. But when I was a child and this movie first came out, I loved it, which has since taught me to maybe readjust views on things I saw when I was younger.
Oh, yeah. Well, so, yeah. So, Uwe Boll, 2005.
Yeah, who starred in it? Who are main stars?
This movie stars Christian Slater as Edward Carnby.
I loved Christian Slater when I was a dude too. I thought he was the coolest. You know what's really funny about Christian Slater? When I was younger, I remembered him having like a very deep masculine voice, and then when I watched this movie again the other day, he sounded more like Fran Drescher than I remembered.
Christian Slater has been wincing since 1994.
His permanent eyebrow, just the one that's always up.
I can't remember what movie it was. At some point, somebody told him, like, hey, you know, when you make that face, you look kind of like Jack Nicholson. And he never stopped ever again. Also starring Tara Reid, cinematic powerhouse Tara Reid as Aline Cedrac, the archaeologist.
That's a name. That's a mouthful for a name.
It is,
especially for a white girl like Tara Reid.
And also starring Stephen Dorff as Commander Richard Burke.
Man, when I rewatched it, I was so surprised to see that. I completely forgot about him being in it, and I was like, "Look at his hair.
Look at that! It's Deacon Frost from Blade.
Exactly.
He's gonna sell me an e-cigarette."
Oh man.
So this is Alone in the Dark, 2005, and we're gonna dive in. Are you ready, Jeremy, to dive in?
I'm very ready. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So speaking of this movie, when was the first time like you watched this? Like, what was it like in your life? The first viewing you had of this film?
This film, I have no idea. This was 2005. I was in the Army. I was in Special Forces training at Fort Bragg. I don't know. I have no idea when the first time I saw this movie was. I know I saw it. It was probably a DVD that I rented somewhere, because back in those days, there were still DVDs to rent.
Yeah, there were still stores like Blockbusters or Hollywood Video. We had one of those. Or
I'm sure I would have found it at some point, but I don't remember my first viewing of this. That whole time period is all sort of a blur.
Understandably. I know when I got this movie, it was one of those double pack features. You know what I mean? So it came with something else that I wanted. And I think it was Casper, if I'm not mistaken.
That
it was
is
a long
weird
time ago.
mashup.
I know. It was like, remember you could go to like the bargain bin?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It was like in the bargain bin, like a bunch of weird, randomly shrink wrapped together videos at like a mom and pop's video store.
Oh, yeah.
And I bought it because back then I was just starting to go work offshore. And so I needed movies to go offshore with, because that's when those portable DVD players first came out.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how awesome those things were? I'd bring one of those out on the rig with me.
I took one of those to Afghanistan myself. Yeah.
There we go. You know exactly what I'm talking about then.
A big binder full of I had to take all my DVDs and put them all in a binder.
I had one of those
obviously, you can't bring a trunk full of DVD cases.
Yeah,
to war.
We were limited to small amounts, because most of the time we had to take like either a chopper or something like that. I was doing I&E work with my buddy Cody, and we would build these very elaborate like fold out rigs on the bunks that you could place them in out of tubing and stuff. It was crazy. But I know that movie and The Evil Dead were the two that I worked with all the time, and I just dropped my phone on the ground.
You did. No, Evil Dead's great. That is very different than this movie.
Yeah.
As inspired and brilliant and creative as Evil Dead is, this is the opposite. 2005, and this feels like a 2005 movie in a lot of ways. Man,
I'll tell you, it feels like a late 90s movie, because if like the beginning of it feels like a late 80s buddy cop movie, like maybe like one of the Lethal Weapons or something. Like it has this very like, I don't know, like the very beginning of it, no.
It's
But when they introduce like Christian Slater's character Carnby as like an adult, and that first fight scene, the martial arts fight scene, that is 90s cop movie all over it.
yeah, there's okay. Well, I think we should let's get into this. Let's dive right into the cesspool that is Alone in the Dark from 2005. Oh yeah, it's that spooky.
It is.
So this is 5 different movies.
It's
all
so
happening.
many storylines in the first like 30 minutes of the movie. There's so much going on.
And this has been an ongoing discussion that we've had about video game adaptations
Yep.
into film. You're taking something of a game that is a first-person experience where the player is the protagonist, and you're replacing it with Christian Slater, which sometimes is not a problem, but other times it very much is. And this is one of those times. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me that this movie starts with an opening crawl. And just in the opening crawl, it describes like 4 almost completely different plots to a movie.
I counted it. I'm pretty sure it was 8 paragraphs that scrolled through.
Like the required reading before you start watching this film it's just wacky. It starts off talking about a fake Native American tribe that existed and then disappeared. And then it starts talking about Bureau 713, the secret government paranormal research division. But then there was also a guy who worked for them but went crazy and started doing experiments on orphans. And you're like, what?
Convoluted.
What? And then the orphans that got experimented on were called sleepers. And then it shows some people walking around in the woods, like in a police call, like searching through the woods. And then it just says 22 years earlier. Earlier than what? I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's happened or what anyone's doing. But now we're going to before I didn't know what anyone's doing, to more stuff that you don't know what's happening.
Yeah. The first 8 minutes of this movie really convinced me that I didn't know what I liked when I was a kid, because I didn't remember any of this part, honestly. And it's atrocious.
It really is. And there's just so much happening. And with a video game that you play for, who knows, maybe even a shorter game, 10 hours, 12 hours. That's 6 times the length of this movie. So maybe in a game you can have all of these elements. I watched a little bit of gameplay from the game that this movie is supposedly based on. I didn't get that far into it, but it's like 2 people going to like, it was the 2 main characters, I believe, but they're going to like somewhere called Shadow Island. And there was nothing about the Bureau 713, or maybe that all comes into it. I don't know. I didn't get that far, but I didn't see any direct evidence that any of this had anything to do with the game.
They had to have a little bit of freedom or put their spin on what the game was.
Well, there's just so many.
There's also a bunch of weird locations in the movie. You notice that? There's like an orphanage, a museum, a gold mine.
And his apartment, which is also like a museum. It looks like the back room of a museum, but with a mattress.
Ship, them out on the ship. I forgot about that part.
It's just like this entire movie is just cherry picked from other movies.
Yeah.
Christian Bale, or not Christian Bale, he wouldn't be caught dead in this. Christian Slater, Edward Carnby, he's just John Constantine. Like the movie, the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie came out technically like 2 weeks after this one. So they were released almost the same time. It's like January and February of 2005.
When I was a kid, I remembered him being like a dark Indiana Jones, like an Indiana Jones that wouldn't say some quirky shit. He would just punch you in the face. And then I watched again, and now it's like the worst ripoff of Indiana Jones I've ever seen.
Oh well, I trust me, I know how you feel with that one. One of my favorites was John Carpenter's Vampires. James Woods as Jack Crow. Like, oh, he's so badass. I'm like, no, he's not. He's 5'4". He's just an angry man. He's just a small angry man in a leather jacket. just being mean to a prostitute, the whole time. That's all it is.
So it's needless to say that the story did not impress us.
No, so the story in this movie, if you can call it that, is Christian Slater was an orphan who was experimented on by the guy who worked for the department, who knew about the Native Americans who disappeared. And he can't be controlled.
Well, he also can't remember it. Remember?
He doesn't remember
anything before 10, so he doesn't remember any of this.
He runs around in a trench coat with buckles, and he does General John Constantine things. And Bureau 713 is really just the BPRD from Hellboy.
But he's also very martial artsy.
This is very, very Hellboy. Sure.
Okay.
He can fight. He's just a generic, like, kind of hero guy.
Yeah, but he can fight like he shouldn't be able to fight, if that makes sense. Like, his style of fighting doesn't match his character.
No, because he's just the protagonist from the game, so
yeah,
he just can fight. It doesn't have to be backed up in reality or anything physical. There's nothing about Christian Slater in this movie that's like, wow, he could sure take down 5 guys. Like,
yeah, the big giant bald guy with the crazy tiny sunglasses.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. It's just, there's so much Hellboy in it. There's so much like Constantine in it, and then such clear like stealing from. There's the Mummy. There's a lot of the Mummy in it, and then aliens.
Oh, for sure. They're called Xenos, aren't they?
Yeah, they call them Xenos instead of Xenomorphs.
And they look a lot like aliens.
But they can turn invisible like the Predator, which I'm pretty sure is how it was pitched in the room. It's like, well, what if we took like the invisibility of the Predator, but then made it an alien guy, but it's also a dog, but it's got a scorpion tail. Also people have bugs on their spines.
I'll give it one thing, and that is, I'm surprised at how well the graphics actually did hold up of the Xenos. Like, I've seen movies from that time period where the graphics are way worse.
Well,
so the graphics of the Xenos in particular surprisingly held up fairly well for when I just rewatched it last night. Well, but to be fair, it literally took me I had to sit down 6 different times to continue watching this. Because
it's hard. It's one of those ones where it starts off fun and you're like, oh my God, this is so wacky. And why did anyone think this was a good idea for a movie? And it's really fun at the beginning. And then it starts to drain your soul.
Instantly.
The further you go into the movie, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's
just so typical of every other movie you've ever seen.
It's
would
really
be the best way to describe
it's
it.
Predictable, and it's just slow paced, and it's awkward, and the music. There's a love scene between Tara Reid and Christian Slater for some reason. And did you listen to the song? Did you hear the song? It's it's like an Eastern European power.
It's all they could
ballad.
get rights to.
Oh my!
With their $20 million budget.
Oh yeah, it was. The music is wild. The music itself that song got nominated. I think it won a Razzie for like worst song.
Oh, that's great.
It got. This movie has a lot of nominations from.
I bet it does.
Golden Raspberry and whatever the other one is. Yeah, it's bad. There's too much to explain all of it, and you don't want to know. I mean, you can put it together as you watch it, but then it just sort of drifts off, and then other stuff like.
By the end, it's a totally different movie.
Yeah, it's like because all the main heroes are like trapped underground in like a pyramid or something, or whatever. The
ancient xenomorph headquarters, because they apparently all live subterranean forever.
Yeah, there's just a door in underground somewhere.
Yeah, don't open the door.
Yeah, it's very Lovecraftian. Like it's like if you took an H.P. Lovecraft kind of story and just drained all the mystery and horror out of it.
All the stuff that made it a good Lovecraft story.
I mean, it's the bones of a Lovecraftian kind of, and you got weird monsters and doors to other universes and cults and all kinds of stuff. But it's a slog. It's very difficult to get through.
It was very difficult to get through. So on that note, we've been through the general storyline. We've told you a bunch of random things that you don't need to know because you're probably never going to watch this movie. And if you do, you should just re-listen to this podcast to remind you why you shouldn't. But if you do watch it, we'll be on the lookout for what we considered. What do you think your favorite scene is?
Favorite scene?
Favorite scene. You had to pick one scene that you thought was your favorite.
I mean,
I know it's hard. It's difficult for
I
this
didn't
one in
like any of
particular.
it. Yeah, that's tough to say. I mean, of course, there's a crazy fight scene where instead of, I guess, to do video game effects, or I don't know what it's supposed to be, but they really they shot everyone on a black screen shooting guns in different directions.
Yeah, it's the ripoff of Equilibrium's gunfight scene.
They all just sort of pasted them on top.
It
into
looks,
one
I know
shot.
exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it looks.
So that's your favorite scene?
I don't know what would be. I mean, it's definitely not the weird, awkward sex scene for a relationship that seemingly doesn't exist.
Yeah.
A completely unearned. He gets the girl, I guess, because also everyone works for the secret government, but also the bad guy, who's a secret BPRD 713 agent, also works for the museum.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? How do you have two? Why are you doing both of these things?
Both secret jobs.
And you're also evil and trying to open the door to
his evil
visible
acting
xenomorphs
was
for some
atrocious.
reason.
I know we've said a lot about Tara Reid's unacceptable acting for this movie, and not saying she's a great actress in
I
particular, but
almost just
his
feel
movie.
bad for her. She just doesn't. Everything she says is just like, it's Abskani.
Yeah, it's just very monotone, her performance.
It's Abskani. I'm an archaeologist.
Which is
It's
the
just
most
so-
unbelievable part of the movie, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel
Especially
pity.
for someone like you. It must truly hurt you to see Tara Reid representing your brand of humanity.
I mean, I love movies with bad archaeology in them. I have a master's
We're gonna
in
make that movie.
archaeology. Yeah, absolutely we will. Like I love real archaeology, but your Indiana Jones, it's all bad archaeology. This is some exceptionally bad archaeology because it's an ancient civilization that vanished without a trace. Well, then how do you know about it? And they keep finding stuff, and they know all this backstory about these people and how they disappeared. How do you know? How do you know what any of this stuff is? There's no context with any of it. There's no provenience. There's no anything. So it's like, oh, I got a thing. And then look, I bet it plugs into, luckily all 4 pieces of the key were all discovered across the world at the same time.
Yep.
There's just so many weird things in it. And I have no idea why Dr. Hudgens. That's his name. The bad guy's name is Hudgens. What is he doing?
There's no real, like,
Why does
there was
he
a scene
want-
where he was like shooting up blood from it into himself or something. He was trying to control them, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Well, he did control. Remember?
Yeah, he sent them all after
He's
him.
standing there, and they all run past him, which looks kind of cool, but it doesn't.
It was a decent scene.
But why are you just want to release alien dogs to the world?
Yeah, they don't really.
For what?
There's no explanation. There's
He's
no
not-
dive into the important things. There's only dives into this superficial stuff that you really don't need to know anyway.
Yeah, so
who
it's
cares?
incredibly specific about all the things that don't matter.
Exactly. My favorite scene of the movie is actually when Christian Slater, Carnby, is that his name, right?
Yeah,
Comes back the first time.
Carnby.
Carnby. Oh,
It's
yeah.
even
yeah.
worse
It's
to say.
Carnby. That's
Edward
why I can't
Carnby. And poor Stephen Dorff has to just keep yelling, hey, Carnby. Hey, Carnby. And he's got to keep yelling Carnby. And it's impossible to sound cool.
Carnby, I'm going to need my ID back.
Give me I hate you, but now I respect you.
Yeah, now we're best friends at the end.
And then
Buddy cop movie, I told you.
and then spoilers for the end. Burke, Stephen Dorff has a bomb. He's been carrying around a bomb in a bag. So he opened the door to the other dimension and he's like, oh, there's a bunch of alien dogs. They're all going to swarm into our dimension or whatever. So he puts the bomb down and they close the door and then they run all the way out. And then he's like, oh shit, the clicker's not working. So he goes all the way back and opens the door. How you have to go all the way back? What is the point of the remote?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Do
can't
you have
go
to plug it
halfway
into the
back?
side?
Why aren't you trying it as you go? Oh,
Maybe he was.
It's-
All right. So back to my favorite scene.
back to your favorite scene.
My favorite scene. Christian Slater comes back. Tara Reid slaps the shit out of him.
Yeah.
That was a funny scene. That was probably the best scene of the movie. But what I loved is when he presented her this artifact, she goes to this 1990s computer with a pin attached to a cord and just points it at the thing, and it just scans every part of it and uploads it into the computer. And it's just like, that's not even available today. That's not available.
Yeah,
It's just, it was my favorite scene. The old computers, that whole scene where they're dealing with the old computer graphics. I don't know. That tells you how bad the movie was, when my favorite scene is the old computer graphics.
I wonder if somebody's done that, just like a deep dive into the variation in fake movie computer interfaces.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, just to combine look at everything.
All right, so what do you think your least favorite scene? What is the scene you absolutely hated?
Part where it starts and then the movie happens. It's what's the word? I mean, said Tara Reid. There's no part of her that feels like an academic.
Yeah.
At any point. There's no. She just looks at everything and says it's Abskani. Like these artifacts are apparently everywhere from a civilization that disappeared 10,000 years ago,
Without a trace.
So 10,000 years ago, you're probably.
But these are all traces.
Yeah, without a trace, except for all the stories we have and all these
and the giant golden sarcophagus in the ocean
and the big weird mirror door.
Yeah.
But 10,000 years ago, you're talking like the Clovis people, and the only thing we have from that society is their stone tool technology. So, like Clovis era points and hand scrapers and flakes, these kind of tools like are identifiable to a specific time period. But that's all we know about them. But I don't think that there were alien dogs.
That's your belief. You're gonna have to
It is.
hold that. I don't know if I want to believe the same thing. Maybe there are alien dogs.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We're seen at what? All right. So once everybody's stuck underground, the three main characters are all underground. The movie has to keep going, apparently. So there's dogs attacking this base, and then
they've got the worm xenomorphs in the sand, because this is actually my worst scene.
There's tremors in it too, but then
Yeah.
there's also ones that attach to your spine
Yeah.
and control your brain. So there's lots of different permutations of this alien, but it switches to like the computer guy and the girl who are like on the computers in the back of the
They're
truck.
in the command center.
Yeah, and it just cuts to this girl and with her rifle, and she's going up these incredibly long steps for some reason on what seemed to be like a decommissioned lumber mill or wherever they were.
They called it an abandoned gold mine or something.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't catch that.
I caught it because one of my least favorite parts was also they are surrounded by like every 713 member or whatever the name of the organization is.
Yeah.
And Steven Dorff is running around saying, "We need more people. Get
More
more
people."
people here." There's literally 500 extras around you right now in this movie.
I guarantee the director just said like, "Oh, say you need more stuff or whatever."
Helicopters, bring in helicopters.
Yeah, he's just like, "What is this? We need more."
Yeah.
He sounds so dumb because they gave him nothing. He's ad-libbing that.
Exactly.
You can tell, and he's got
Exactly.
nothing to work with.
Yeah.
And then to do what? What are any of these people doing?
Yeah.
Every one
Fighting
of them
this
gets
mystic
killed.
thing.
3 people go down in the basement to go do whatever this thing is, and everybody else just gets killed. And what did any of this happen for? Like, what are you doing?
This movie.
It's
Yeah, my least favorite scene was also down there, and it was when they were doing the sand with the trimmer things going around.
the lady gets her head like cut in half.
Well, I just
remember?
thought it was. There's a person on the ground, and they're all spinning in circles, shooting guns like at each other and at the ground.
Just at the dirt. Yeah, like
it's
you're just wasting all of your
It's
ammo.
the dumbest. Someone would have gotten shot in that situation in real life without a doubt. So those are probably my least favorite. It's funny we had the least favorite scene.
But that guy, the computer guy on the, because there's the computer lady with the backwards hat named Crash.
Yeah, I can't get them. Their signal's bad.
I don't remember if she lived or not. I don't. Maybe Crash lived to crash another day. But the computer guy from the back of the truck, he got double clever girled because the Xeno like popped up in front of him. And then like another one also popped up behind him, and I looked at it as soon as it happened, like double clever girl, because it wasn't just the one clever girl. There was another one too.
That's right, that Jurassic Park ripoff.
Yeah. So there's Jurassic Park. It's like, what if you took good things from a lot of movies and mixed them together
and made them worse
with shit? If you took bits of prepared food from some of the finest restaurants in town and just mixed it together with dog shit, how would that movie turn out?
That sounds like a good course.
Yes, that is Wagyu beef, but I don't like the marinade. That's where we're at with this. Uwe Boll is terrible. His movies are bad. Blubberella, don't even try it. Blood Rain is somehow the best of them, and it's awful. This is the guy who made a movie called Rampage about some like taxi driver kind of ripoff.
Okay, you said Rampage. I instantly was just thinking about the movie with
the one that fucking predates it, based on the video game from the 80s. Yeah, Uwe Boll went on a tirade about that movie, Rampage, with The Rock coming out, because he said it infringed on his trilogy of movies titled Rampage. It's based on a game from the 80s. His movies came out in the early 2000s. Like,
sorry, this game predates your movies.
Yeah, you don't own intellectual property that happened 20 years before you.
Not only that, there's tons of movies named after the exact same thing, basically.
Yeah, but the guy's an idiot. He's a bad director. I don't know how. What's even crazier is there was a sequel to this.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I did see that there was a sequel.
Yeah, 2009. Uwe Boll produced it, and somebody else directed. I think it's sort of a soft reboot sort of thing, different story.
Maybe I'll have to watch that on another day and multiple viewings as well.
Or don't. Or just don't ever go back to this. Don't watch it. If you haven't seen this movie, don't watch it. Just go watch Hellboy and Constantine.
Or anything else.
And Aliens.
Aliens?
And The Mummy.
Or Predator.
And Predator.
Especially Predator 2.
Watch all of those movies and then just say, well, what if these were all one movie, but it was bad? And that is how you end up with Alone in the Dark.
So on that note, what do you think the social impact this movie left?
I mean, it is widely regarded as one of the worst movies of all time.
Indeed. So it does actually, as horrible as it is, it has a wide social impact.
It did. It's a cautionary tale, I'd say, more than anything else. It's just, it's not creative, and it's the early 2000s, like everything had that sheen of like, oh, this is a new millennium. Cause like the 80s were all big and bright and flashy, but then the 90s were like, well, now we're even more serious.
Yeah, this felt like an early 90s movie to me. I can't believe it came out in early 2000.
I just, with like Dracula 2000 and just what 2000 always meant, over the top action from people who would never be able to.
When they thought all the computers were going to crash.
Well, sure.
Because 2000, they didn't factor in that extra number. I remember that being a big thing.
There was just
does that make me super old?
Probably. Yeah, well, I remember Y2K.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bad movie. It's not one that you should watch. Said the original game in 92 is one of the predecessors or the progenitors of the survival horror genre. A lot of the bones of what you'll get years later in like Resident Evil are there in that first point and click game. But those have nothing to do with this. This has little to do with the movie or the game that it's based on. Said they spent 20 million. They made 12.
And it shows. I'm surprised they made that much.
Yeah.
That's because back then there were no streaming services. You had to go to the movies and see it.
This would have been rental.
Well, I'm sure it came out in the theaters. But, everything
there was
a
theatrical release.
Yeah.
There was a theatrical run, but then it was, in the movie or in the.
I wonder what it made at the theaters. I wonder how it competes to good old Morbius.
I'm sure most of this had to be DVD sales.
Yeah, you would think so.
'Cause I don't
Especially, I
think-
mean, those bargain bins. That's where everyone got it. That's where I got it from.
Yeah.
Well, usually we would go on to something like what we would change about the movie, but if there was one little thing that we didn't like, or maybe where we hope the franchise goes next. But I think we can both agree on the fact that we would change everything about this movie by probably never creating it to begin with.
Yeah,
and where the franchise goes next, probably nowhere.
I think the best way to change it would be to, like, Terminator style, send someone back in time, send a robot back in time.
Yeah.
To take out Uwe Boll's mother or
And
something.
the storyline is just too convoluted, too many things going on to even debate about recreating now. Since there's so many throwbacks and all these movie theaters are going back and recreating their old titles. This one is just too much. I wouldn't even say it's recreatable.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't do this again.
Yeah.
Like, there's a story in this game that there's a way to make it cool, probably.
Yeah, but this ain't it.
This ain't it, but it's not in 2 hours. Maybe in a 3 seasons of a 10 episode, big budget streaming service or something. What there is there's the only reason that this is a little bit relevant to right now is last week, as we record this, a new trailer was released for a new next-gen console, Alone in the Dark game.
Aha.
I don't think it's going to have anything to do with this. I don't know.
You don't get to be Carnby?
Maybe you're Carnby?
Maybe you're Tara Reid.
I
Maybe
don't
you
think
get to
she's
play
in
that
it.
character. All you get to say is, it's Abskani
It's
the whole
Abskani.
time.
It's Abskani.
When it gives you the selections of what to say, it just says it's Abskani. There's no other
Abskani.
selection, but you still have to press the button.
It's like when it's like, no, actually, that's Mayan. Just
All right, well, that's it. That's what we think about this movie.
yep, we don't like it.
Yep, we don't want you to watch it either. Don't waste your time. Listen to this instead.
Or watch it several times and let us know. What did you think? What do you think? Sound off. Why don't you write to us at unsolicitedconjecture@gmail.com? Send us your thoughts. Send us your
Theories. Maybe if you have a good idea of where you actually want this to go in the future, sure, drop that too.
Yeah, like I said, just bad movie, and it's not that fun. It used to. I remembered it being more fun.
Yep.
To laugh at, and now it just made me tired and sad.
I remembered it being great, and I rewatched it, and I've reevaluated my entire childhood decision. Like I don't know why I liked it when I was a kid. I watched it and I can't figure out what I liked about it. I've liked something. I watched it 100 times probably out on a rig. I chose to bring this as one of the 30 movies I could bring with me. This was one of them.
I think it was a different time.
That's true.
It was a different time, and I don't know. Maybe it was maybe it was scurvy.
Yeah.
Maybe it was some sort of. Did you have a black spot on your hand?
I don't know. I know.
I don't know. I love this movie for some reason, but whenever the moonlight hit my skin, I turned into a skeleton.
Maybe it's because I was willingly putting myself in the middle of a prison, in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by other people who also do the same. I don't know. It was a weird environment. Working offshore was kind of crazy.
I bet.
But that being said, if y'all like this, just make sure you check in for our next episode. We're going to be tackling a new movie.
Another movie. A better movie.
Yeah, a way better movie.
We did a bad movie this time. Next time we're going to do a good movie.
And
that won't always be the format.
No. But this one in particular, I watched this next movie directly after I watched Alone in the Dark, and even though this is a good movie, it felt like an absolute cinematic masterpiece after watching Alone in the Dark. It blew me away.
And it is. I think it is a cinematic masterpiece, but yeah.
Honestly, I agree.
Yeah.
Do we want to tell them what it is?
Next
so
week,
they know?
Hulu's Prey.
Oh,
a prequel to Predator.
It was good. And you know what? To be fair, there was probably a good storyline with these Xenos back when there were Abskani, similar to the way Prey was pulled off. You could probably make a decent movie there.
I
Maybe.
don't think you could.
Not with this character, not with that director.
You could. You spent so much time wondering if you could. You didn't stop to think
if I
you
should. Yeah, that's true. That's
and
true.
now, boom, you're selling it.
All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. All that jazz.
I have been Josh, and that has been and ever shall be Jeremy Deal, coming at you from the Unsolicited Conjecture book club. What is it? Nope. It's a movie.
Yeah, movie.
It was
Movie
not a
club.
book.
It was not a book. It was a game. All right. That's it, y'all.
All
Bye.
right. Peace.